Hello, members. This is Tom Morrison from the new MTI National Offices here in Nashville, Tennessee. We moved a couple weeks ago from Jacksonville, Florida to Nashville, Tennessee, and it has been a great time here. Everything has gone smooth. We have not had any hiccups in serving the members, but we're proud to be here for you and anxious for any of y'all who come to visit Nashville to give us a call and come hang out with us. But today, we're talking about cybersecurity, and before we get into that, if you will just look down on your screen and hit the chat button, you will be able to see a place where you can post in chat for any questions for Nick as we talk about cybersecurity. Very easy to do. I'll be monitoring that to see what kind of questions we can ask him. So a couple things before we get starting. MTI happenings. We have 3 incredibly active committees kicking off right now. They're doing some great work. One is the Education Committee. The Education Committee just finished putting together the spring meeting in Sonoma, April 27th to the 29th. They've put their entire program together, and we've got 4 incredible topics and speakers coming. More on that coming in the next couple of days. Registration is going to open the first week of January. So you'll want to put that in if you like wine and wine country, you will want to come to Sonoma for sure, a great place. And then we're reestablishing some of the MTI Academy content. We just came back from 2 days of filming in Philly with one of our members, Jim Coneybear, to reestablish and update some of our content on the Academy. If you're not doing training, it's imperative that you jump on mtiacademy.com and begin to get your people in our heat treat specialist program and our safety certificates and the management aspect of your business. So lots of great education out there. Go check it out. And our next gen task force is going to be taking a lot of different resources we have with the scholarship foundation money. We're about to release an internship job board where you'll be able to put on internships in your company that's available locally for people in your area to see and come work for you in the next generation. And we're taking 2 new recruitment videos that you can send out to school teachers and students and tech schools to share them with them how incredible it is to work in the heat treating industry. And then in the safety committee is about to go launch a call next week where they're going to be building some best practices for elevated workplace, elevated workspace, confined space, arc flash, and lockout tagout. So lots happening. And the cool thing is all this work is being done by people just like you, the members. So if you want to get active at MTI, you just email our offices at tom@heattreat.net and we'll take care of you. But with that said, a lot of stuff going on at MTI. Great meetings for next year. Today we're going to talk about cyber security. Huge, huge topic. We had Nick Espinosa, who's here to talk with us today, talk at our fall meeting. And members were on the edge of their seats, glued to everything he was saying because it is such an important topic. So Nick, take about 60 seconds. Tell MTI members who you are and what you're about and what you specialize in.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I had a great time in Vancouver as well, meeting a lot of you. Hopefully some of you are on this webinar. I am Nick Espinosa. I am the Chief Security Fanatic of Security Fanatics. We do all things cybersecurity, cyber warfare, cyber terrorism, infrastructure, and government compliance related. I like to tell my clients I'm paid to break into you, defend you, or both. I've written a best-selling book. I've done 3 TED Talks. I have a nationally syndicated radio show on cybersecurity and cyber warfare, and it's really my thing. So I'm very happy to be here and looking forward to working with you.
That's awesome, Nick. Appreciate you being here. I know our members are really excited about what this topic can offer them. So just to kick it off, give everybody an overview of what's happening in the cybersecurity space and why it should be such a priority on everybody's mind in a company.
Well, I mean, I think the media actually has done a pretty good job of keeping cybersecurity on the forefront by virtue of all of the data breaches that we have. So on my radio show this week, I'm going to be talking about the top breaches of 2020. 2019. The 2019 was the worst year ever for hacking. We had more records hit, billions and billions of records hit, more companies declaring data breaches. And I recently read a study that said 9 out of 10 Americans have actually had some kind of cyber incident in their life, whether it's scam, a fraud, phishing, an account takeover. It is basically inevitable at this point. If 90% of us here in the United States are having this issue, we are also the #1 target on the planet. And so that is pretty much the state of the union as it comes to cybersecurity. And what we are talking about now is moving forward with a lot of different tactics in cybersecurity that people basically haven't been thinking about. We've been using very conventional methods for years, such as antivirus and all of that. But now cybersecurity is starting to morph into things like identity management, because we have so many problems with people's usernames and passwords getting hit. So for example, if you heard about the recent Ring doorbell, thing, and nobody should be using a Ring doorbell, in my estimation, you had people actually getting into like the security cameras from Ring and talking to people in their homes and all of that. That is part of the issue.
Wow.
That we have. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. There's a video of a hacker actually talking to, it looks like a 4-year-old girl in her bedroom, telling her that he is Santa, and trying to get her to do things.
Wow.
And so it's a huge problem that we have, from residential all the way up to corporations and government. So it's inevitable we're going to be talking about this. We're going to be doing
my typical hack that I've got is I wake up in the morning, I'm looking at my phone, and I go, honey, have you been shopping in Europe again?
Yeah. Right.
At 3 o'clock in the morning, but I mean,
right.
It's everywhere. Like you said, it's everything,
Yeah.
everything. So when it comes to putting someone in charge, I know a lot of people have IT people. I know you made a comment that they may or may not understand the whole scope of cybersecurity. So talk about who people should have in charge of this, and is the IT person the actual most best qualified?
Yeah. So I will say this. I said it in Vancouver. I say it all the time. IT is not cybersecurity. They're actually two different animals, and basically they're married together. They really are. I own part of an IT company. I love those guys. I can set my watch to those guys, but it is a different animal when we are talking about cybersecurity, the tactics, the training, the techniques, even the philosophy. I can sit down in a meeting with my IT people and say, okay, let's talk about threats. Let's talk about trends and all of this. And they will give me a lot of different tactics, utilities, and all of that. I go sit down with my cybersecurity people and talk about threats. And we are having conversations about calling in bomb threats to clients so that we can clear buildings to hack, this kind of stuff. And I like to tell my clients, and I have a lot of clients that are actually IT companies, third-party IT companies that support, companies like MTI members.
Right.
They're not really oftentimes doing cybersecurity. They're doing data security, which is a subset of cybersecurity, is not holistic in nature. And so while they might have, let's say, anywhere from low end to typically mid-range products, oftentimes they're not really offering a cyber security strategy or cyber defense strategy. And I like to tell them this when I'm talking with them. I'm like, if you've never actually had a case where you had to hack into a school district to download information on a teacher so you could print out a fake badge, walk into a school, and possibly kidnap a child, you're probably not doing cybersecurity. This is the world we live in.
Right.
And by virtue of that, our tinfoil hats are pretty flippin' huge, and it's just a different animal. In the same vein, I wouldn't go to like my podiatrist for brain surgery.
Right.
It's just a different specialization, and we need them. We have to be married to both, but quite frankly, IT drops the ball a lot in cybersecurity, and it's not their fault. They just don't have the training. They don't have the mindset, the mentality. You would never hire me to go install a printer for you.
Right.
Unless you wanted to be severely overcharged. I have a specific subset of things that I do, and I'm more than happy to have IT support the rest of it, support the infrastructure. It's two different animals, it really is. And so when you are talking to, like, let's say a third-party IT company and is talking about giving you a cybersecurity assessment or doing anything like that, understand you're not really getting a cybersecurity assessment. You're getting a data security assessment at best. And that's an important understanding that a lot of companies just simply don't have, or they're relying on their internal IT staff to do cybersecurity, and it's just not the same. It's really not the same thing.
So what kind of qualifications, what kind of questions should people be asking? And what, maybe if someone's got an IT person who's got opportunities, what kind of training should they even be looking to put them through?
So, well, a couple of different things. One, if you are interviewing an IT company, let's say to come on board, or you have an existing third-party IT company that supports you, the easiest thing, and you can ask them questions on their qualifications and certifications and all of that. Sometimes those certifications can be meaningful depending on the person. Sometimes, we all know that person that can just regurgitate answers on a test and pass anything.
Right.
But they can't practically apply things. So I in my own hiring, I kind of look at certifications, but what the number one tell, the easiest thing that you can look at to see if your IT company is actually on the ball with cybersecurity is to find out what products they use. If they're using low to mid-range products, then odds are they are not investing the time, money, and energy into R&D, which is basically what cybersecurity requires. We spend a ton of time reviewing products, putting our people through specific product certifications and training, and we'll ditch all of our products next week if a new set of more advanced, more aggressive products comes out. A lot of IT companies have been using, for example, the same firewall for the last 10 years because they know their profit margin. They don't have to train anybody. It's very low cost for them to do that, which means it's profitable for them. That's not the way it works in cybersecurity. We're always looking for the next gadget. I'm always questioning what I have. And what I think I'm running right now, as of at least 30 days ago, I think is the best. That was my last review. So that's something to consider. And I think that's one of the easiest ways to really separate a good IT company from a mid-range or bad one. If they're running really solid and superior enterprise level products, then that's good. Now the question becomes, okay, what is an enterprise product versus what is a mid-range product?
Right.
So and the
most 5-star rating, right?
Right. So the most obvious example would probably be the firewall. That is one of the most critical things to a cyber defense strategy at the hardware level. Basically, an enterprise level firewall is Palo Alto Networks or Checkpoint Security. There's another product, firewall called Fortinet, that is starting to get up there. And the more mid-range products that I pretty much see overwhelmingly every IT company run would be like SonicWall, WatchGuard, Cisco, all of that. If you are running one of those products, it is way better than doing absolutely nothing or going to Best Buy and getting the $50 Netgear. But that is a massive gap in the cyber defense strategy, because at the enterprise level, it just detects and stops more. Cybersecurity in that sense is a zero-sum game. You're either defended or you're not. And if you're not putting in basically the number one thing, you're putting in something that's 85% effective, that's a 15% hole that you're just dropping right into your network right out of the gate. Why would you do that? And if these products are 10% more than a mid-range product, it's really a no-brainer to get the extra defense.
Right. So moving into what is in the cybersecurity world and what hacks are, you said something at the meeting it struck me kind of funny, is that you said that most hackers are lazy. So Delvin, let's talk about, before we get into what the hacks are, talk to the membership about what does a hacker look like and what are they really looking for and what do they want to do?
All right. So in my presentation, I actually had this as well. There's a couple of different types of hackers, but to the original point, yes, we are the laziest people on the planet. If I can find a workaround to get around something, I will absolutely do it in my life. And so by virtue of that, hackers are typically going for the easiest targets. The goal of cybersecurity is not to make you hack-proof. Unlike the title of this, I would never tell any client ever that I could make you hack-proof. I would be completely lying, and if anybody tells you that, they're lying as well. But what I can do is make you such a pain in the ass to break into, that basically what ends up happening is the hacker's like, screw this, I'm going to go to the competitor. I'm going to go somewhere else to get into where I want to go. A lot of companies that work with larger companies, and I am literally looking at the entire MTI membership, working for, let's say, defense contractors and other places that need very critical, metal products. You guys are a stepping stone to get into a larger company, because odds are you're not going to be running that Fortune 100 level defense. And so that's what hackers are going to go through. I'm going to hit you to possibly get into their system, and if I can't get into them, then I'm just going to ransom you out for whatever money I can get. So by virtue of that, it's, that is the issue. We're going to find the easy ones. And so if you don't have decent security, you're just going to be easy to walk into, easy to hit. Now, there's a lot of different hackers, and there's a lot of different mentalities on hackers as well. If we're looking at this, some guys and this was me at age 14 when I broke into my first major government system. I just want to see if I could do it. I was not trying to ruin anybody's day or anything like that. I just wanted to see if I could get in there. Others want money. Others are hacktivists, meaning they believe in some kind of social change. And so maybe that is, I want to bring down a Lockheed Martin or a Boeing, so I'm going to go hack everybody around them to kill their supply chain, stuff like that. Groups like Anonymous are pretty notorious for doing stuff like that, or attacking police departments or government agencies. So you never know, where the issue is. And we have hacking worldwide. The internet connects us. Data moves at 3,000 miles a second. So somebody sitting in Romania can send you a phishing email instantly, as they can in Nigeria or Southeast Asia, or, wherever they're coming from, or even in our backyard. We have plenty of hackers here too.
I'm still waiting for my $11 million transfer.
Yes. Yeah, so that Nigerian prince is struggling for his life right now.
Exactly. So that's the hacker. So now let's talk about what are some of the known and even unknown hacks and different ways people are hacking into people's lives.
Sure. So the biggest and most obvious way is phishing. I mean, phishing accounts per FBI statistic, roughly 80% of all cyber threat out there. 80%, 8 out of 10 times, it is going to be phishing. Now, I think it's about 93 to 95% of all phishing now contains ransomware. So if you're looking at that, you're looking about roughly 78 to 82% or so of the entire threat landscape that we have to deal with. I don't care if it's grandma in Idaho or a Fortune 100 company or everything in between, is ransomware being delivered, through email and through other phishing means like fake websites and all of that. They changed the code tremendously, so and very quickly, so it bypasses antivirus, like the AV on your computer, very easily. That is probably the most malicious threat that we have out there. Some of the more unknown ones would be account takeover attacks that you don't necessarily see. So for example, most computers have Intel processors in them. Intel has been susceptible for years to an attack called Spectre that they've been patching left and right. But if you have any kind of infrastructure in your business that, let's say, is remotely managed or hosted, we have been able to get into that, infect the actual processor due to a vulnerability, and then start gathering information out of the company, even if it's encrypted. Because the processor is supposed to handle part of the encryption for the hardware, and we're able to actually get around it and break into companies. So a lot of companies are still having that problem because they just simply, I've had this server for 5 years, I've never patched the processor in it, and Intel's released multiple patches every time they figure out that, we got broken into again. And this was a problem that just cropped up in the last couple of years. We've been running with this vulnerability for 20 plus years. And the speculation is only the intelligence agencies, the Russias, the Chinas, and the NSAs of the world actually knew this existed until it got dumped. So there's a lot of these things. Process hijacking is another one. So if you run any kind of regular antivirus like Symantec or WebRoot or anything like that, they can't detect process hijacking or fileless malware, which basically actually doesn't even insert a file into your computer. It opens up what's called PowerShell and starts executing commands that the PowerShell then just runs against your computer to download things, to disable things like antivirus. Those are some of the ones that we see with increasing frequency against corporations, because they're the ones that usually have intellectual property or sensitive information that can be ransomed. So yeah, those are huge things we've seen right now. Not to mention wireless takeover attacks, all that kind of stuff. We can spoof a 4G cell tower. So your phone thinks it's connecting to Verizon or Sprint, but that's pretty rare. A lot of hackers are not really at that level yet, but that's coming. So it's just one thing after the other with this kind of stuff. And now with 5G, that opens up a whole different can of worms too.
Right. So just people going back to phishing and ransomware. So give a brief synopsis of what give a little detailed synopsis of what those are for anybody that may not really understand what they do.
So phishing takes many different forms, but the most common form is email. So you might get an email that says, hey, it's, a long lost friend and I'm stuck in England and I lost my wallet and, can you send me $3,000 for a plane ticket or whatever? It could be a phishing email that basically says, hey, click this link, or your bank wants you to reset your password or something like that. And you click a link and it takes you to a site that looks like your bank, but it's actually malicious. It's stuff like this. I recently got one in Facebook. I had a friend that sent me a message of a blurry video and it said, is this you? And I had to laugh because that's a very common tactic to send a blurry picture or video so that you tap it or click it, open it up and infect your phone or infect your computer. These are all types of phishing. Basically, it's to get you to believe something that you think is real, but it's actually not. Yeah. That's all it is. You think you're going to your bank. You think it's a friend, all that kind of stuff. So it's very common, and there are other types of phishing as well, like spoofing C-level executives. I'm literally going through that right now with a company that lost over $1 million when somebody spoofed a financial advisor, and the controller to the company just was sending hundreds of thousands of dollars per transactions over a couple of months, not realizing that they weren't talking to the actual financial advisor to the company.
Right.
And so, they sit back and say, oh my God, that's another form of phishing as well. So there's a lot of different styles, but that's typically the one you're going to see. Fake forms, fake pictures that are infected, fake emails. That's the core of it.
So what now, and then go one step further into ransomware. That's kind of the big one that I know a lot of people have seen.
Yeah, so there are two major variants of ransomware right now. The first one is what a lot of people have probably heard of, which basically locks out your files. It bypasses and typically disables your antivirus. We wrap it in what's called a FUD, F-U-D, fully undetectable program, and then we insert it into your computer, disable the virus scanner, and then we encrypt all of the data. Like Word documents, pictures, Excel, whatever we can get our hands on. The sophisticated ones that go after corporations can lock out databases. They will erase backup images as well to make sure that you can't restore, that the only thing you can do is pay them money to unlock your data. And the typical ransomware, let's say if you just catch a random one like any person at home would through just generic email, it usually costs about $300 to $500. We have seen corporate ransomware go up into the millions, depending on the size and shape of the company. And by virtue of that, if they are targeting you, they're pretty much going to any one of these free websites to see basically what they believe your estimated revenue is and all of that. And then they work with a number that they think you can afford. So it might be $50,000. I've had a client get hit for $500,000. That was a $10 million company. The biggest one I've had ransom-wise was $78 million that they had requested due to the intellectual property and sensitive nature of the business. So it varies, but businesses are increasingly under attack by virtue of that. That is this typical ransomware that we see. Now, conversely, the other side of this is actually crypto mining, which is a subset of ransomware, but it doesn't actually ransom you for anything. What it does is it starts consuming all the resources in your computers, your servers, even your cell phones in the cloud, and we'll start utilizing that to mine things like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency. And so as the price of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies go up, we start to see an increase in crypto mining infections and a decrease in ransomware, because the hackers think, well, if I can mine one single Bitcoin using your electricity, your computers, your everything, that is way more lucrative for me than just getting you for $500 or $1,000.
Right.
So we see that balance. As Bitcoin goes up, crypto mining will go up as well. As it goes down, crypto mining goes down. So
I think about another thing you brought up at the meeting that was kind of striking is we all walk into an airport or a Starbucks and we either charge our phones or we put a USB port or whatever. That was something that I was not really aware of. I'm sure many people in here have no idea it goes on. So talk to us about the USB thing and the safety behind that.
So right now you can go on Amazon and you can buy generic cables, like lightning cables for your iPhone or USB-C cables for your Android or computer, whatever that is. And there are organizations now that are actually manufacturing cables that basically have a little logic card built into them that are powered through the power once the USB is plugged in, that will actually infect a phone, a computer, everything else. So we can basically remove, let's say, a USB charging station and replace the USB ports with our customized ones, plug it in, and as soon as you plug in your phone to that, it will actually infect your phone. And if you think you're on an iPhone and you're secure because you're an iPhone, I will tell you this right now, we infect the hell out of those things all the time. So you're not safe from one thing or the other. Assume any of your technology, basically that you plug into, let's say, a USB port you don't own, is susceptible. It also underscores the reason why we shouldn't be buying generic cables, because you don't necessarily know who's making it. It could be completely fine, or it could actually be infected. That's a very common tactic.
So you're saying that you should buy original cords and you should use a block.
Yes. Go pay the $6,000 for an Apple cable.
Right, exactly.
It's worth it. All my cables here are branded Samsung because I'm an Android guy.
Right.
And like the one iPad I have in the house has literally it's the Apple cable. And the reason being is that it's very difficult, to trust a cable from a generic company. And even those cables, or companies that are known good, have the potential of having what's called a supply chain hack. So Supermicro, which is a maker of servers, got hit by 2 Chinese intelligence officers last year, where they were inserting processors into Supermicro servers the size of a grain of rice. And then Supermicro, not knowing this, obviously, was shipping these to the US Navy and to Amazon and to Apple and to a whole bunch of others that gave Chinese intelligence this internal telemetry into the infrastructure of US corporations and one branch of the military. So this stuff happens quite a bit, which is all the more reason why we try to stick to original manufacturers.
So we've talked about who the hackers are, what their mentality is, a lot of the hacks. So now let's talk about strategy. So I'm a business owner. I touch base with customers. I have furnaces. I have software. I have operations. So what are some of the steps, including training, of what I need to be telling my people that use our system? So unpack all that for us. What should be the steps?
Well, I will say this. There's a lot of different steps here. But if we're talking about a business, understand the single greatest threat to the business, hands down, without a doubt, are the employees, including the owner. Our biggest single issue in cybersecurity is lack of training and awareness. People get in trouble all the time. They open up phishing emails, they go to links they shouldn't go to. We fall for things. We think the person on the phone actually is a representative of our bank, whatever that is. I like to tell my clients that I can build you a Ferrari's worth of cyber defense, but if I turn the Ferrari or the keys to the Ferrari over to a chimpanzee, how far are we going to get?
Right.
We need to learn to drive. Now, by virtue of that, education is beyond important. We also need to understand that every single business in the entire planet has risk tolerance. You should be able to, if you are saying, Nick, come in and talk to me about implementing cybersecurity, you should be able to tell me in real dollars and cents your risk tolerance. How many computers can be off or down, and for how long before people are screaming, or you're out of business or something like that. Can marketing be down for a week and nobody cares, but production can only be down for 6 hours before it hurts so financially bad? If you can't tell me these things, if you can't tell the cybersecurity professional these things, you can't build a good defense strategy, because how are you going to build a proper backup infrastructure? You have a lot of third-party companies that say, oh, we can spin you up in the cloud and we can download all of this and we can get you up in a day and a half. Well, maybe a day and a half is too long. And if you don't know that about your business, then you're not going to know this.
Right.
You're not going to be able to plan a proper defense. Once you understand that, the next thing that you should really do is a cybersecurity assessment. Now, this dovetails with it. I have some clients that go through the assessment first, or they'll do that as they're working on their risk tolerance. But basically, a cybersecurity assessment typically should be basically framed off of something like NIST 800-171. A lot of the third-party IT companies will give you a data security assessment, so they will look at your protective technologies and what you're doing for data security. So, okay, are you using a firewall, antivirus? Do you have encryption? These kinds of things. Those are just a little bit of an aspect of what a full cybersecurity assessment should look like. And here I can share with you guys. If you're looking at the screen here, this is the NIST 800-171 cybersecurity framework. And I don't know, Tom, if you can see my mouse moving around.
I can.
Okay, this right here, data security, information processes, protection, procedures, all of this, and maintenance. Those are basically the 2.5 to 3 categories that technology companies, IT companies, managed service providers fall into. You need to go through every single one of these to understand at a holistic level where you're at. Do you have good asset management? Is that something? Can you tell me who has what computer and when? Who has what iPhone and where? And how that is managed? Can you tell me about your business environment? What governance, what compliances do you fall under? Are you PCI? Are you HIPAA? Do you have to fall under NIST by virtue of working with defense contractors? Have you done risk assessments, access control, analysis? How do you communicate through a disaster? How do you have improvement planning? How do you run detection processes and mitigation capabilities? This is a holistic cybersecurity framework. And if you are getting something called a cybersecurity assessment that cannot answer 22 categories of the 5 critical functions of NIST 800-171 or another cybersecurity framework that competes with NIST like CSA or ISO, then quite frankly, you don't have an assessment. You've got a data security assessment at best. And that's something I think that is beyond critical that a lot of organizations don't understand. And so if you're getting into cybersecurity and you need to understand how am I going to defend this business, you have to be able to answer all of these things. You really do. And oftentimes when we're starting assessments, the answer to a lot of these categories is, I have no idea, I don't know, or we simply don't do it, we don't have it. So the way we look at cybersecurity in general is simply this. At its core, the umbrella is CIA. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data. From there, we apply that through technical, administrative, and physical safeguards. So this is your encryption and your firewalls and all that. Your administrative safeguards is your maintenance, your processes, your procedures, your training, your policies. Physical, how are you locking this down? Where are you storing stuff so that nobody can tamper with it? These are the things that we are looking at when we are going through a cybersecurity assessment. And then we are applying that methodology to a framework like NIST 800-171. That is the crux of it. And so if we're starting on that journey, that's what we need. We need a risk tolerance. We need a cybersecurity assessment, an actual cybersecurity assessment.
So you've mentioned NIST a number of times. Unpack that a little bit and talk to members about what NIST is.
So NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, basically they have an entire wing of NIST, that's the 800 series, that talks to basically data security, cybersecurity, and information control as it regards to organizations. This has been ratified basically by the Department of Defense. So when you're working with a Lockheed or a Boeing or any one of those in that space that has government contracts, they are typically adhering to either NIST 800-171, which is considered a medium to high level cybersecurity framework, or they're adhering to NIST 853, which either, depending on the range of it, can either be less stringent than what I just showed you on the screen, 800-171, or way more stringent. So by virtue of that, if you are working with these companies, most of these companies, because you fall in the supply chain in metal treating, you are required to adhere to whatever NIST standard they have typically. That is required. They have to attest to that to the government that their contractors have formal data in cybersecurity. And so that is becoming something that is just being pushed left and right. A couple of years ago, it was, they dropped the bomb with DFARS compliance, for defense contractors, but pretty much most of the industry now, outside of even the DoD, are now, I'm seeing a lot of large corporations going to their subcontractors and their contractors, smaller companies, saying, here's a 300 question checklist of what we require, fill this out, and if you don't meet this or can't attest to this in the next X amount of time, then we're going to drop you. We don't need you, you need us. And our reputation is not going to be ruined as a large company because you can't handle our sensitive data in the way we need you to.
Right.
And so I've seen a lot of companies scramble over the last couple of years to say, oh my God, we have to do all this stuff, to get there and all of that. So, so that we can continue working with our larger customers. It's becoming a very serious thing.
So what's the low-lying fruit in the strategy? I mean, I'm sure our membership is a $1 million heat treater to a $100 million heat treater. So, and most of them are under the $10 million range. So
yes.
What's the low-lying fruit that off this webcast, they should walk away going, man, we got to at least go do that? So
I think part of it is understanding where your current state is. That speaks to something like a cybersecurity assessment. Understand the good, the bad, and the ugly. I like to tell my clients after you're done with the cybersecurity assessment, you can't say you haven't been told. And then from there, you start to plan and strategize. Nobody goes from, oh my God, the barn is wide open to Fort Knox in a day. You start to plan. You start to say, okay, in 2 years, we can get there if we have 2 years, or maybe it's 1 year, 6 months, whatever that is, depending on the need. And then you start planning to put those big rock elements in. So you start training right away. You start upgrading, let's say, defensive technologies that are at the perimeter. So, and what I mean by that is, if you have a building where all your employees are, just using an easy example, they all use one internet connection, or maybe you've got a backup to get to the internet. So you put in a firewall between the internet and the rest of the world so that anything coming into your computers or anything going out from your computers is now scanned at a very aggressive level, and you are starting to build a defensive strategy based off of that. And then from there, it's understanding that once you have this assessment done, you now are going to do quarterly improvement planning, and whoever your IT is basically going to every quarter have a new project that will continually enhance your security. And so you can do very basic things right out of the gate that make it significantly harder to hit you, like enabling multi-factor authentication, getting tier 1 level, Fortune 100 level firewall, which is actually affordable even for the $1 million business, and moving on from there. The goal is to identify the problems that you have, basically create a perimeter and secure the organization as best you can, as quickly as you can, and then from there start building and enhancing the security beyond it.
So, you mentioned some two-step authentication. I never thought about it much. Whenever I'd get into a website, my bank or whoever, and they'd say, okay, do we send a digital code to this cell phone number? And you're like, and it's a pain in the butt, but it's only when I heard what you said, the why, that I understand, okay, yes, I need that two-step authentication. Yes. So talk about that a little bit.
Everything, here, let me grab my phone. Everything needs multi-factor authentication. Pretty much every website has it. If you are working with a corporate login, like let's say to a cloud provider of yours that doesn't have multi-factor authentication, I would seriously consider switching. And the reason being is that essentially if you have multi-factor authentication, and hands down, the best multi-factor authentication is actually not getting a text message. So when you log in with your username and password, let's say to your bank, for example, as Tom was mentioning, you can get a text with a unique code that is good for the one time, and then it will reset itself and it'll change, and that will get you in. So if I steal your username and password, because I have not stolen your text messages, now you are safe if your identity or your login is ever stolen. This is the push for identity management we see in cybersecurity. But texting is no longer considered secure. NIST doesn't even recommend texting because we can hijack SMS, the SMS system. And in fact, there is a company called True Dialogue that does corporate SMS texting solutions for corporations. They just had a data breach of something like hundreds of millions of text messages, senders, all of this got exposed. And they weren't securing it properly. So the best way to do multi-factor authentication is through an authenticator app. Now, if you are running an organization, let's say of over 20 users, I would highly recommend getting an identity system like Okta, for example, which will give you things called single sign-on with multi-factor authentication. But at the most basic level, I use an authenticator app, and you can see it here on the screen. So if you have my username and password right now, with this code, you would be able to get into Amazon and see my account. And every 30 seconds or so, that code will basically change. That protects you more than anything else. And when we are seeing phishing emails like that one client that got taken for over $1 million, they were actually just able to get her username and password, log into her Office 365 account, and basically whitelist their fake email addresses so that when they were sending them to her, they bypassed the spam filter. She had no idea. That would have all been taken care of if they had enabled the free option in Office 365. It's free. Most of the time it's free. So go ahead and get that enabled. That is the number 2 thing beyond education that will protect you. So there are things that you can do right now as you are defending your network, as you are looking to enhance your network, that are very easy to spin up and run. They're just very hard to manage when they're free. That's why I'm saying get an identity management solution like Okta or Duo or something like that, where you can centralize all those users. It also gives you the ability, and I mentioned it earlier, to give you single sign-on. Single sign-on is simply this. Let's say you sign on to 5 different websites like Office, a database, Salesforce, whatever that is. You can have Okta or Duo manage that. And so when you log into any one of those, it will automatically log you in to everywhere, all of your ecosystem. So it's very easy for users to go from point A to point B without having to type in 5 different logins, but it's ultimately very protected because it requires that authenticator app, and it actually monitors the activity of the user. So let's say somebody from Russia is trying to impersonate Tom here, and suddenly Okta is seeing that Tom is trying to log in from Russia.
Right.
It's going to basically block that and say, wait a second, we have rules that doesn't allow Tom to be anywhere but Florida or wherever Tom is. So there's a lot of different things that we can do that are pretty straightforward and fairly easy out of the gate.
So my big question at this point, after seeing what you did with your phone, does Amazon have a code system that will allow your spouse to block your spouse from getting in and shopping?
This is why I have 2-factor. So my wife has her own Amazon account. And I basically, I don't let her into mine because I don't want her to see what I got her for Christmas. That's basically
Right.
it. She would
Right.
look. And thank you, two-factor authentication. It doesn't allow her, even if she has my
To hack
password,
in.
to get in. Yeah.
So another big step I think we need to talk about is passwords. I think that's something that most people don't talk to their educate and train their employees about. You know, they want to put in, you know, their first initial and their last name. And you had something on the screen that was pretty amazing, where you had put in a lot of uppercase and lowercase letters that were like 20 characters and said, how long would that take to hack? Minutes. And then you put in something like, I love Jake, $, and a number, and that takes a gazillion years. So talk about passwords and what people should be thinking about with passwords within their companies.
Yeah. So I will tell you this: length, hands down, is your best friend when it comes to passwords. There's no doubt about it. You should be using 4 character sets, uppercase, lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters like exclamation point, question mark, dash, $, that kind of thing. The biggest problem that a lot of companies have is either twofold. One, they don't make the passwords long enough, even if they're using 4 character sets. As you go up in length, it's exponential, actually, in terms of the time it would take to actually crack the password. And so if you go from 8 characters to 9 characters, it goes from something like, 2 months to break a password to 2 years. It is huge. Now, length is awesome. On my mobile phone, for example, on Android, I have a 14 character password here. And if you have iPhone, you can actually go beyond that. But for Android, it's pretty much capped. And if you're thinking, you're absolutely high if you think I'm going to have a 14 character password on my mobile phone, my answer to that is biometrics. I get into my phone instantly just by tapping my thumb on the screen. So passwords don't necessarily have to be a pain in the butt in that sense. One of the biggest problems I see, though, with organizations that have aggressive password policies is that they make passwords that are just like pull your hair out, difficult to type in, like 9x2-734. Like, nobody's going to remember this. Everybody hates it. And when I do assessments and I walk around offices, I see those on Post-it notes stuck to monitors everywhere because nobody can remember the damn thing. So make sure you've got good length and passwords. Make sure that you are changing your passwords with frequency, because you never know when a password's going to hit, or if one of your providers is actually going to be storing it incorrectly. Facebook is actually the perfect example of this. In 2019, they were caught storing hundreds of millions of passwords in plain text, meaning over 80,000 of their employees could have read your password, just read it. It wasn't encrypted on the back end or anything like that. So the super awesome password in my mind is, you can't touch this 1990 exclamation point. That's the one I use on stage. That is read then by pretty much anybody at Facebook. And that's why we change with frequency. And if you're doing that and you are adding multi-factor authentication to it, you are way better off than if you have a horrible password. So if my name was Nick and my password was Nick, and I know those people, that is no defense at all.
Right.
7% of all data breaches happen in under 60 seconds, and that's because of poor passwords. It really is.
Wow. So we've talked about everything from hackers mentality, what are the hacks, best practices, passwords. Why not use a USB port? So is there anything going through your mind that you're like, you know what, this is a piece that we didn't talk about, and you want to unpack that? Is there anything that we've left out?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of different threats and scams out there right now that we have to deal with. I touched on user education. I think one of the things, if I can dive into that a little more, it's so critical.
Sure, that's a big deal.
Yeah, you can basically sign up for services that will phish your organization. They will send them phishing emails, and you will absolutely be amazed at the amount of people that fall for things. So, as an example, on the more aggressive side, 3 days before Easter this year, we ran a phishing attack against a 200-user company, basically saying, oh, hey, I want to say it was like on a Wednesday or a Thursday before Easter Sunday. We said, oh, hey, sign up for our potluck, sign up for the company potluck Easter lunch for Friday, open up this Word document and fill in what you want to make. And we basically signed it by the HR lady and sent it out. Well, we gave her a heart attack basically as she started getting an influx of basically, oh, why didn't you tell me this like a week ago? I could have started making my famous ribs, or, whatever it was. And we got, in under 2 hours of that email being sent, 60% of that entire organization infected. 60% at 3 different plants. And so you don't know what you don't know with that. I think that is probably one of the biggest issues that we're going to have can perpetually in the future. We are ignorant of these things, and and everybody falls for them. I've even known very tech savvy people to fall for phishing scams simply because they think they're secure. So please, I'm really stressing the education point of that. The other thing I would probably talk about here is 5G. So one of the other things that I do, on my resume, I'm actually on the Forbes Technology Council. I write articles for Forbes and some correspondence for CNN. I wrote an article for Forbes called "Why 5G is going to get us all hacked," or something along those lines. And the reason being is that hackers love bandwidth. We are now going to be spinning up an ultra-fast wireless infrastructure that is going to give hackers access to more bandwidth than they previously haven't had. But conversely, a lot of companies are actually going to start opening themselves up to vulnerability, because when they start looking at the cost of deploying 5G, let's say, as the internet connection for every single desktop, every phone, all of this, oftentimes companies are going to do the math and say, well, why am I spending X amount of dollars to buy firewalls, to run data cabling, to have network switches, to have wireless access points in the building, when I can just pop in everybody on 5G and run? Well, by virtue of that, we have now basically dismantled the traditional defenses that an organization has, and we are relying on Verizon or Sprint or whomever to basically run that perimeter for us. And we're sharing that 5G with all of our neighbors, corporate or otherwise. And so what ends up happening is a lot of businesses will then probably make the calculation to say, well, we'll defend our devices with, let's say, antivirus. Well, we can usually, unless it's next generation antivirus, most antivirus is very easy to bypass and to deploy viruses against. And so 5G, well, I'm very excited for it. I think if we are not really looking at it in terms of considerations for the future of how we're going to be handling 5G in our corporate infrastructures, it becomes a very serious issue. And I go into this like in deep detail for Forbes, but that's the gist of it right there. That is a very, very serious problem that we have on the horizon. And while everybody's, excited for the Ferrari speed, it's really going to open us up into trouble if we're not having these considerations in our businesses. It's a real issue.
So let's go back to the HR thing, the Christmas party. So what are some best practices for understanding a phishing email? What should people be looking for? I mean, if you got that from HR in your own company, it'd be very easy to say, yeah, Mary, she sent it. We're going to do that party.
Well, I mean, part of it is verification. Part of it is the tells. So oftentimes, and I have an entire presentation on phishing where I take people through slides, and you'd be amazed, like, okay, how many think this is phishing? How many don't think it's phishing? And so you'll see emails that are coming from your bank or PayPal or Facebook. They look legit, and they'll say, oh, Google needs you to reset your password. But when you go to the actual link, that's where people are missing it, because you're not going to google.com, and banks are very good at just trying to pound you over the head with their correspondence saying, we'll never ask you to reset your password online. So I think that if we are talking about identification, the first thing to do is one, test everybody, get a baseline understanding of this, but look for those little tells. Maybe you think to yourself, this doesn't seem right, this is kind of odd, or Mary or Maria from HR is not going to send out, why would she send this out so late?
She never sends out email.
She never sends this kind of stuff out, or one of the most basic ones, usually when we're running a baseline phishing test, because that was a little sophisticated, we'll just generically sign it, the IT department. Oh, your account was illegally accessed on blah, blah, blah. Please change your password. Sincerely, IT. Not from like Bill, head of IT, or Steve, IT analyst, or no, just IT. And then people click the link in, or you can hover over links, and oftentimes it'll show you where it's going to go. And if it doesn't look like your company portal or Google or Facebook or whatever it is, there's little tells. But if you're not trained and you're not aware, especially when it comes to financial transactions, that's a huge, huge issue. And you don't have to get sophisticated, but set a threshold in your company to say, okay, any transaction over $500, $5,000, $50,000, whatever level that is for you, to say that needs to have another factor of authentication. I talked about that on stage in Vancouver as well. So if I send Tom an email saying, Tom, I want you to move $1 million to China, I better be picking up a phone and calling Tom so that he knows it's actually me, or sending him a message in a different way, email and text, something like that, or inserting a code that we agreed upon, not in email, because if I'm in your email system, I'll have the code. We've agreed. So, okay, I'm talking to Tom before I left for China and said, Tom, if I use the word pineapple in an email, it's me, and that's a one-time use code, because I typically wouldn't be saying pineapple if I'm sitting in China. It's those kinds of things that we don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money to do to really defend ourselves on. Low tech sometimes works, but phishing, if you're looking at the tells, if it just doesn't seem right, the default is don't answer it. I saw that message from my friend with the blurry video and said, is this you? And my first thought was, that's not right. My second thought was, oh yeah, I've seen this scam 1 million times, but most people haven't seen it. Haven't seen that scam. And so when they do see it and they say, oh, that's not right, stop. Just don't click anything. Call IT.
Well, so we're coming to the end of our time, Nick. So anything in closing you'd like to say to the members out there about what they need to be doing?
Well, I think the two biggest things that I've really kind of hit on and really pounded on is, one, the educational side of this.
Right.
Go get phishing. Go get your people educated. That is our single biggest issue. Almost all of the calls that we get from new clients that say, oh my God, help, we've been hit, hacked, locked out, they want $1 million, whatever that is, almost all of them is somebody dropping the ball. Somebody clicking a link they shouldn't have, somebody emailing something they shouldn't have, somebody responding, going somewhere, having an account taken over because their password is password. It's one of those things. Train your people. The next thing, because identity management is such an unbelievably huge thing right now, because the dark web is just dumping usernames and passwords everywhere, is enable multi-factor authentication. You can, if you're doing it for free for now, as you're planning for identity management system, you can go download Authy, A-U-T-H-Y, install it, and it will run Facebook and Amazon and Twitter and Google and PayPal and anything pretty much in your life except Netflix. Netflix doesn't have 2FA. And I need Netflix. I have kids, so But I think those are the two biggest things. And if you want to have a cybersecurity assessment, which I recommend for everybody, understand your risk tolerance. Get an actual cybersecurity assessment, not a data security assessment. Be able to speak to all 22 categories, even if you fail 21 out of the 22.
Right.
Understand where those issues are, because if all you're doing is looking at your bad passwords and your bad firewall and your bad antivirus, that's not even half the battle. That's part of it.
Right.
It really is in my world. So,
well, awesome, Nick.
Quick advice.
Thank you for all that. Members, this session is highly important. Every one of your team should be hearing it. It's been recorded. It'll be on your in the MTI community by tomorrow morning for you to send out and forward to your people to have everybody watch and see how you rate and what you want to do next for cybersecurity. Put on your calendars January 14th for the next MTI Heat Treat Live. We're not sure what the topic will be yet, but we'll be announcing it soon. Put it on your calendar, 2 p.m. Eastern time on MTI here. So thank you very much for your time. Have a great Christmas holiday. And you're not strong, you're MTI strong, my friends. Have a good day. Nick, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And thank you all. Have a good, happy holidays.